Hi everyone, my name is Phoebe Matthew and I'm going to be talking to you about disability disclosure. The first one says, identify at least 3 reasons a person might want to disclose their disability to an employer. The first one I put was that a person would want equal opportunity to compete for employment. They might think that if they are honest with their employer, it would create a trust between them and they would be more willing to hire them knowing that they were honest in the beginning. Another thing I put is so that the employer can properly accommodate them in whatever they might need, whether it be assistance or assistive technology equipment. The ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, requires that employers provide accommodation so that employees can enjoy the benefits and privileges of equal employment equal to those employees who don't have a disability. The third thing, I found a quote by a lady by the name of Kathy Flaherty, which is the executive director of the Connecticut Legal Rights Project. She said that disclosing a disability to an employer enables a person to live one's own life authentically and be able to bring one's whole self to work. So I think that a person would definitely want to disclose their disability because they would not want to keep it to themselves. That way they have to keep it in. It would prevent them from living and being able to do their job wholeheartedly. So letting the employer know right off the bat, they could get that off their chest and know that they could be who they were, bring their whole self to work and do a good job. Identify 3 reasons a person might not want to disclose their disability. Number 1, they might not be sure that they can or how to disclose to their employer. They might have been treated poorly for disclosing at a previous job and decide to keep it to themselves, which this would, I think, later on hurt them. But number 2, they might not want to be treated differently just because of their disability by their employer or their coworkers. So whether we like to admit it or not, there is a lot of discrimination towards disabilities. I am not sure if it's because of lack of education, lack of exposure, ignorance. I'm not sure. And although we would like to say that everybody's very accepting, that's just not how it is, unfortunately. So I could definitely see how someone would not want to disclose their disability because of fear that people would treat them differently. The ADA actually forbids employers from discriminating against applicants or employees on the basis of disability. Even though there is this law in place, I feel like it's still an issue and there still is discrimination in the workplace. Number 3, for someone who hasn't come to terms with their own disability, they might not want to disclose to their employer because it might be really overwhelming for them, especially if like their disability has happened recently or something like that. They might find it difficult to disclose because they are embarrassed. Okay, share how you would coach someone with a disability on constructive self-disclosure of their disability. So I read an article called How to Disclose a Disability to Your Employer and Whether You Should. It mentioned that every person is in charge of what and how much they disclose about the disability. I think when considering starting a new job, it is important to let the employer know about the disability, but not necessarily share every single detail about the condition. So, of course, if you're going to need accommodations for your disability, definitely share that, share the main part of the disability, but I don't think saying every single detail. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, you only have to let your employer know what you need an adjustment or change for. So I think if a person with a disability starts mentioning every little detail about their disability, it might cause the employer to stop backing off, thinking that you might not be able to do the job, even though they're not supposed to discriminate. Due to the disability, I think the more that you tell them that you can't do or the complications that you have, I think unless they ask specifically for it, I think just tell them the main parts of the disability. Another thing that I wouldn't let everybody in the workplace know, the employer is required to keep the information confidential. However, I guess it just depends on the person, how they are, how they deal with things, the nature of the disability. There's a lot of things to take into consideration, but I think maybe just the basics, telling the employer, maybe not all the coworkers. Um, Identify content you read in the textbook about constructive self-disclosure and content you found elsewhere. So the textbook mentions that self-disclosure is the process of letting another person know what you think, feel, or want. It is one of the important ways you let yourself be known by others. Self-disclosure can improve interpersonal communication, resolve conflict, and strengthen interpersonal relationships. It also talks about 4 main benefits that you gain when you openly share what you think and feel. They are increased accuracy in communication, reduction of stress, increased self-awareness, and stronger relationships. As I was looking elsewhere for other sources, I found that the Social Security Administration site mentions that there are 3 reasons why someone with a disability may choose to disclose to their employer. These reasons are benefits, privileges of employment, and unusual circumstances. The site also mentions that open communication can help you get the tools you need to succeed as you start a new job and complete workplace assignments. So, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's just a case-to-case basis, taking into account that everyone's different, everyone's disability is different, the workplace, the job description, that's different. So I think there is like, there are guidelines to follow, but it's not a set in stone like for every single person, because every case is different, every person is different. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for listening, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say.